Ever heard a knock with no one at the door? A sudden hiss at night when no snake is near? What if those weren't just random noises but spiritual alarms? Sounds that whisper warnings, sounds scream warfare. Most people ignore them, and that's exactly when witchcraft strikes. But once you learn to decode these 8 sounds, you'll never be caught off guard again. The spiritual realm is never silent. Heaven speaks, hell echoes, and every sound carries a signal. You were born with the ability to hear beyond the physical, but conditioning taught you to ignore it. And that silence has cost you discernment. When witchcraft is near, it doesn't always manifest as chaos or confrontation. It often starts with strange, repetitive noises that seem ordinary but disturb your spirit. These sounds are not accidents. They are alerts. When they show up, it's not time to panic, it's time to pay attention. Have you ever been startled by the sound of tapping or knocking in your house, especially when you're alone? That's not your house settling. It's often a spirit trying to enter or make its presence known. Repeated knocks with no source aren't coincidence, they're spiritual breaches. Witchcraft sends vibrations before it sends manifestations. And if you feel cold air, tightness in your chest, or sudden anxiety alongside that knock, it's a sign something unclean is trying to anchor itself nearby. Another sign is whistling when no one is around, especially at night. This sound is ancient in spiritual warfare, a signal of wandering spirits or messengers carrying assignments from darkness. If you hear it and feel a chill in your spine, don't brush it off. That's your discernment kicking in. Witchcraft often travels on frequency, and whistling is one of the lowest it slips in. Subtle, unnoticed until it's too late. But when you notice it early, you disrupt the assignment before it manifests. One of the most overlooked warnings is ringing or buzzing in the ears. Not the medical kind, but sudden, sharp, and spiritual. One ear goes numb for a moment. A buzzing floods your hearing. It comes out of nowhere, then vanishes. That is not just body mechanics. That's interference. Witchcraft tries to cloud your hearing, because faith comes by hearing. If your hearing is disrupted, your spirit becomes distracted. And the longer you ignore that buzz, the more open the door becomes. Sometimes you hear groaning or moaning, especially late at night. It may sound like pipes or the wind, but your spirit knows it's deeper. This sound often signals territorial spirits, those that don't want you in a new house, a new relationship, or a new level. Witchcraft works by intimidation, and eerie groaning is one way it tries to inject fear. But fear is faith contaminated. If you allow fear to fester, you get permission to the presence. That's why you must respond quickly with praise, prayer, and power. Another overlooked sound is the crying of animals, especially dogs or cats at midnight. Animals are spiritually sensitive. They see what you don't and hear what you ignore. If your pet starts growling at empty corners, barking at shadows, or meowing toward darkness, don't silence them, observe. They're often your first line of defense. Their unrest means your space has been invaded spiritually. Witchcraft hates detection. Animals are detectors. When they make noise, listen. Echoes of your name when no one calls you is another sign, especially if you're alone. You hear it clearly, soft, seductive, or sharp. But when you ask, did someone call me? No one answers. This is not imagination. It's a spiritual lure. Witchcraft often mimics the familiar to distract your focus or pull you into spiritual traps. When your name is used without source, rebuke it. Don't answer it. It's not always God calling sometimes. It's deception disguised in familiarity. Another warning is footsteps with no feet. You hear them overhead, behind you, or in the hallway. But there's no one there. These sounds often mean a spirit has entered uninvited. Witchcraft doesn't always scream. Sometimes it walks slowly, confidently, to see if you notice. If you hear it, but ignore it, it becomes bolder. But if you rise, speak, and command it to leave, it loses ground. Authority is what makes the difference, not volume. Lastly, beware of the sound of sudden wind indoors, especially without windows open. If a draft moves through your room without source, and you hear it before you feel it, that's a spirit. The spiritual realm travels on wind, both holy and unholy. If the wind brings peace, it's divine. If it brings fear or pressure, it's polluted. Witchcraft often comes in through open doors, literal and spiritual. Close them. Speak aloud. Take your authority back. You are not helpless. You are chosen. The danger is not the sound itself. It's what you allow after you hear it. These sounds are not there to scare you. They're to wake you up. Your spirit is a sensor. God has built-in alarms. But if you silence them out of habit, you risk letting darkness take root. So the next time you hear the unexplainable, don't just wonder, respond. Discern. Declare. Because the greatest danger of all is ignoring the sound of a spiritual invasion. Not everything your ears hear is meant to be explained in the natural. Some sounds come as signals, gentle alerts that something beyond the physical has entered your space. The spiritual realm is always speaking. When God moves, there is thunder, wind, whispers. But when darkness creeps in, it carries its own strange echoes. You were never created to live deaf to this dimension, but culture has trained you to dismiss anything you can't see. That's where danger begins. When your spirit senses something unusual, a pattern of strange noises, a repeated disturbance, is not paranoia. It's perception. These aren't coincidences. They're cues. Sounds are not just heard, they are felt. They carry presence. And the moment you begin to recognize them for what they are, you start to take back the ground the enemy tried to claim in silence. There's a reason why tapping or knocking unsettles you when no one is there. In the natural, it's annoying, but in the spirit, it's symbolic. Doors represent access and knocking signals a desire to enter. When these sounds occur without a physical source, it's a spiritual trespasser testing your guard. Darkness doesn't always kick the door down. It knocks subtly to see if you'll invite it through fear, distraction, or indifference. If you hear knocking and feel anxious without knowing why, that's your inner alarm. It's not just sound, it's a spiritual vibration. This isn't the time to brush it off or call it weird. It's time to rise in authority. Stand by that door and declare who doesn't have permission to enter your dwelling. Your awareness is your wall. Your words are your weapons. Use them. Whistling at night, especially when no one's near, is not always an innocent tune. In ancient cultures and spiritual warfare traditions, whistling was used as a call, a signal to summon spirits or energies. If you hear it out of nowhere and your spirit tightens or the air feels charged, don't dismiss it. It's not just air through teeth. It's a carrier wave of unseen intention. Dark forces don't always come in bold form. Sometimes they ride frequencies that humans often ignore. Your job is not to fear the sound, but to discern the spirit behind it. What follows whistling is often restlessness, confusion, or strange dreams. If you catch the sign early, you stop the cycle before it starts. Declare peace. Speak cleansing. Play worship where the whistle was heard. Shift the frequency. Break the pattern. Silence the enemy's music. A sudden ringing or buzzing in your ear isn't always physical. Sometimes it's spiritual interference, a form of static to confuse your hearing and interrupt divine messages meant for you. Your ability to hear clearly is a threat to darkness, so it tries to distort, distract, and desensitize. If one ear goes numb, or a high-pitched frequency floods your head and leaves just as fast, take note. It's not always illness, it's often interference. The enemy understands that faith comes by hearing. So if he can twist the sound, he can delay your progress, but you don't have to accept it. Lay your hand on your ear. Speak restoration. Declare, no spiritual static has power here. Take authority over your body and your spirit. Your hearing isn't just for sound, it's for instruction. Protect it. Groaning in the atmosphere, deep, eerie, low-tone moaning is a spiritual language. It may sound like pipes, the house settling, or even the wind, but if your spirit feels uneasy, that's not mechanics, that's manifestation. Territorial spirits often resist new levels. When you move into a new place, break old habits, or begin to pray differently, they stir. They groan because your presence threatens their grip. Their sound is not to scare you, it's to distract you. But remember, their noise is only proof of your progress. Don't shrink back. Don't ignore it either. Respond with boldness. Fill that space with praise, light, and declaration. When you take dominion, groaning becomes silence. And silence means they have fled. You didn't come to coexist with darkness. You came to cast it out. Animals are far more spiritually tuned than humans. They sense what your mind misses. That's why when your dog barks at nothing or your cat hisses at empty corners, you should pay attention. Especially if it happens late at night or consistently in one place. Their reaction isn't random, it's response. They feel shifts in energy. They detect intrusions. And their sound is an early alarm. Witchcraft hates being seen, and animals are its early exposure. If your pet suddenly becomes restless or aggressive or overly alert in one direction, ask yourself, what has entered my space? Don't silence them, thank them. Then rise up, walk through your house, and declare that nothing unclean has permission to remain. You are the authority in your home. And what animals sense you can silence. Hearing your name called when no one is there is one of the most dangerous spiritual sounds to ignore. It often sounds familiar, like someone you know, someone you love, even someone trustworthy. But when you answer and find no source, you've already given something access. Darkness doesn't need doors, it needs agreement. When your name is used in the spirit, it's often an attempt to pull your attention into distraction or confusion. It mimics the voice of someone safe, so you'll respond without resistance, but your spirit knows. You feel the shift, your peace flickers, that's your sign. Never answer what God didn't send. Instead say, I only respond to heaven. I only answer the truth. Guard your name. It's not just identity, it's spiritual currency. The sound of footsteps in an empty hallway or movement in a room no one entered isn't always the house settling. It's often a spirit walking where it doesn't belong. Witchcraft rarely shouts. It walks confidently to see if you notice. The longer you ignore the sound, the more ground it takes. Your awareness is resistance. The sound of footsteps is a test to dare to see if you'll confront it or cower. Don't just look around. Stand up, speak, walk through that hall, and reclaim every inch. Say, no spirit, but the Holy Spirit is welcome here. When you acknowledge the sound and counter it, the presence loses strength. You are not a guest in your own home. You are the gatekeeper. And nothing walks there unless you permit it. If you ever hear a sudden gust of wind indoors, especially with no open windows, you've just witnessed spiritual movement. Wind is a carrier of presence. It can bring peace or pressure. The key is in how it makes you feel. Does it bring stillness or strain? Comfort or confusion? Holy presence enters like wind, but so does warfare. Witchcraft often enters subtly, disguised as a chill, a draft, a whisper. But your body responds. Goosebumps, shivers, unease. These are not always signs of fear. They're spiritual senses waking up. Don't ignore them. Speak immediately. Declare your space a dwelling of light. Say, every unclean wind, be silenced, then sent back. Spiritual atmosphere responds to authority. You don't need to shout. You just need to know who you are. Darkness rarely storms the gates. It whispers through cracks. It waits for your indifference, your disbelief, your dismissal. Witchcraft gains entry not just through spells, but through sound waves, subtle sounds, repeated noises, background disturbances, all meant to go unnoticed until it's too late. You were never meant to be passive. You were born with spiritual sensors. When the atmosphere changes, you feel it. When the frequency shifts, you know it. But habit teaches you to mute that knowing. Today, turn it back on. Treat every strange sound not with panic, but with prayer. Don't fear the warning, thank it, because every warning gives you a window to win the war before it starts. When you ignore a spiritual sound, you delay your own protection. Sounds of spiritual intelligence. They're not there to torment, they're there to train. To teach you how to take territory, how to build spiritual walls, how to enforce the boundaries of your home. God won't always speak through visions or dreams. Sometimes he lets the environment speak. The knocking, the ringing, the howling, the movement. Each one is a call to act, a call to rise. You're not a victim of invisible attacks. You're a soldier in an invisible army. And sound is your first alarm before the battle even begins. Every spiritual sound is a doorway. And what comes through that doorway depends on your response. When you tolerate noise, you tolerate presence. But when you respond with discernment and spiritual action, you shut the gate. You weren't designed to live surrounded by mystery and fear. You were given tools, your voice, your praise, your discernment. Use them. Speak aloud. Take oil. Play worship. Cleanse your space with confidence, not superstition. The enemy thrives in silence. He retreats in sound spiritual authority. So next time the knocking returns, the groaning echoes, or the wind stirs, stand up. Speak up and shut it down. Your ears are not just for listening to music or conversations. They are antennas for spiritual activity. When strange sounds fill your space, you're not just being haunted. You're being hunted. But hunters don't win against warriors. You don't need fear. You need awareness. Every sound is a chance to confront the invisible before it becomes a problem in the physical. When you take these sounds seriously, you shift from being attacked to being armed. You go from confusion to clarity. The same ears the enemy tries to manipulate are the same ears that can pick up divine instruction if you're listening with your spirit. You are not powerless. You are not blind. And you are certainly not deaf to the truth. The enemy wants you to believe that your strange experiences are meaningless, but they're not. They are messages, warnings, wake-up calls. You felt them. You've heard them. And now you've named them. So take what you've learned and apply it. Listen with discernment. Speak with authority. Guard your atmosphere. And remember, no weapon, whether sound, shadow, or spirit formed against you shall prosper, but only if you respond.